Welcome to the CS Week Women in Utilities webinar series, sponsored by AAC Utility Partners. CS Week and Conference 39 is fastly approaching. We are at the Charlotte Convention Center in Charlotte, North Carolina from April 27th through May 1st. You may register at our website, csweek.org/web. Online registration is still available through Tuesday, April 21st, and then we will be on-site with on-site registration beginning April 26th. I would like to personally invite you to our female attendees to the Women Utilities Networking Reception. This is a complimentary event that is held Tuesday evening of the conference. This will be a great opportunity to meet and network with other women in the utilities industry. This year we have 4 wonderful sponsors who will be providing for a fabulous evening. During the webinar, attendees are encouraged to upload questions to the Q&A panel as they arise. However, all questions will be held until after the presentation for the Q&A segment. Please, it would be helpful if you would address all your questions to all panelists. Thank you. This program will be recorded and available for playback, along with our other archived presentations found under the Educational Venues /Webinars tab on our website. Today's webinar topic is Breaking the Industry Glass Ceiling, a Perspective from a Woman in Water, presented by Denise Kruger, Senior Vice President of Regulated Utilities at Golden State Water. Denise has 25 years of experience in the utility industry. She joined Golden State in 1992 and has elevated her roles of responsibility from Manager of Quality Assurance and Water Quality to Vice President of Water Quality, and now she serves as Senior Vice President of Regulated Utilities. Denise is active in the utility industry. She includes holding a board seat on the California Foundation for the Environment and Economy, and she is also chair of the Water Research Foundation and past chair of the American Groundwater Trust. Today I'd like to welcome Denise Kruger. Denise, we're happy to have you here.
Well, thank you, and hello everybody. Thank you so much for the privilege of speaking with you today. It's truly an honor to have this opportunity, and I only wish I could meet you all in person, and I look forward to having the chance at the upcoming conference or hopefully sometime in the near future. You know, when I was first asked to speak with you, I was pretty shocked. After all, I never thought of myself as having accomplished something worthy to share with a group of women working through their career jungle. But after some prodding, I was convinced that I could share some of the triumphs as well as the bumps and bruises I've encountered in my long career, and hopefully some of my perspectives can be useful. When my colleagues at AAC asked me to present today, they reminded me of how rare it is to find a women executive in the utility space. Well, it's not only rare in the utility space, but fairly uncommon throughout the business world in the U.S. Judith Warner, an author and leader in highlighting the leadership gap for women, recently published some surprising data about women in the workforce. At least I was surprised by the numbers. In the United States, women actually earn more bachelor and master degrees than our male counterparts, making up 60% of the degrees earned. However, once we earn these degrees, we don't seem to be able to work our way to the top level in our organizations if we stay in the workforce. In the Fortune 500 companies, women only hold 14.6% of the executive officer positions, and only 4.6% of these companies have women CEOs. And these stats are even worse for utility companies. Ernst & Young completed a recent study that showed in the power and utility space, women represented only 4% of the executive ranks. This number is shockingly low. There's an interesting paper by McKinsey that discusses many of the reasons for this discrepancy, and one of which we should always bear in mind, and that is that women are often promoted based on what they've done. In other words, their accomplishments. But men are promoted based on their potential, what people perceive they are capable of. You know, I'm reminded of a comment Warren Buffett once made in regards to his success, and that was he was only competing with half the talent, meaning his success is skewed because he doesn't have to compete with women-run companies. He wrote, "Women are an undervalued resource who are key to America's prosperity." You know, even with all the progress that has been made over the years, there is so much more to be done. So with these stats in mind, I certainly feel compelled to speak up for our physicians in our industry. So a little bit about me, here I am. It's always nice to have a face with a voice. I'm the Senior Vice President of Golden State Water Company, having been in my current position for the past 8 years. More about what that means in a moment. I'm also a wife and a mom, love being outdoors and spending time with my family. I enjoy skiing, swimming, fishing, and hiking, all things that take me out of the office. I'm a California native, having spent most of my career in what is often considered a more progressive state when it comes to women in the workforce. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from UC Davis and an MBA from UC Irvine. I was asked to tell my career story, how I moved along and up the ranks at my utility. So let me share a bit of my resume and then share with you my experiences in between the bullet points on the resume. The experiences that got me from the education section you always see at the end of the resume to the title and position I currently hold, always found at the top of the resume. While resumes speak to accomplishments, it's always what's happened in between the dots that I find most helpful and interesting. Well, I started my career in the utility sector during college, working at a sewer plant as an engineering intern in operations. Once I finished my degree in mechanical engineering, I worked for a short time as a mechanical engineer and then moved back into the utility space as an engineer doing basic water, sewer, and electric distribution design. At the time, water quality regulations and water treatment was getting a lot of attention at utilities, mostly based on the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act that was published in 1986. With the new act came a lot of new laws and requirements and opened up a new field specializing in water quality. I capitalized on this opportunity, gained experience and expertise in water quality, and was soon focusing my career on water quality compliance. I was hired by my current employer, Golden State Water Company, in 1992 as a water quality manager. Well, over time, this field grew and was recognized as one of the highest risks of the water utility sector. More attention and resources were provided to address the compliance needs, and I was eventually promoted to Vice President of Water Quality in 1998. Just prior to my promotion, I went back to school while working full-time to get my MBA. I'll talk more about that later. I was promoted at a time another woman at my utility was promoted to a vice president level position. We were the first women to reach that level in the organization. And this is an organization with a 75-year history. Interestingly, we were also the youngest to reach that level in the history of the company, being in our mid-30s. After facing many challenges in that position, I was promoted to a vice president position overseeing the company's largest operating region. I moved to a smaller region for a time, something I'll discuss later, and then was promoted to my current position as Senior Vice President of Regulated Utilities. I share the senior level responsibilities with our Chief Financial Officer, also a woman, and we both report to the CEO. I also represent the company in industry-related organizations. I'm the chair of the Water Research Foundation Board of Directors and hold positions on other related industry organizations. These positions not only advance the branding of my company, but they provide me valuable resources and networking opportunities. So let me tell you a little bit about my company to help put my experiences in perspective. Golden State Water Company is an investor-owned water utility serving approximately 258,000 connections or over 1 million customers throughout the state of California. As an investor-owned utility, we're subject to rate regulation by the California Public Utilities Commission. In fact, the California Public Utilities Commission regulates just about every aspect of our business, and they determine the appropriate return to shareholders for the investment the shareholders make in the water company. We serve households and businesses in the community just like a municipal water system. Golden State Water Company owns and operates 38 different water systems in different communities in California. My role at the company includes direct oversight of these operations, including customer service in our 24/7 contact center, water supply and operations, engineering and asset management, water quality and environmental compliance, and public and political relations. I manage approximately 500 employees throughout the state with 3 vice presidents, 1 director, and 1 manager direct reports. And yes, it is highly unusual to find a woman in this capacity. And I have to take a moment here to give a shout out for my company. all those stats I mentioned earlier are not true for Golden State Water Company. My company values the benefit diversity brings to the table, and as such has ensured its board and executive ranks reflect that value. Pictured here is the board of directors for American States Water Company, the parent of Golden State Water. In quite a contrast to the low 4% representation for women in most utilities, our board is made up of 44% women. And you can also see the great ethnic diversity representation. So I am blessed to be part of an organization that recognizes the great benefits and value women bring to a company. But that said, I thought I would share a few perspectives I've gained along the way. Again, all those things that happened in between the bullet points on the resume, and highlight the lessons I've learned as sort of takeaways that might be helpful to some of you. So today I'll be sharing 8 lessons learned that I hope you find helpful in your own career paths. And the first is to keep your options open, but be realistic. So what do I mean by this? Well, when I first went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. So to keep my options open, I took the highest level math classes and the highest level chemistry and science classes because I figured I could use those skills wherever I landed. I wanted the most flexibility I could have when finally having to choose a major. I was interested in music, but I knew realistically I wasn't talented enough to turn that into a career where I could reliably support myself. Sure, I figured I could maybe teach music, but I knew that wasn't why I loved music, not to teach it. So it took me some time to figure out what to do. My real goal was to have a long career in a field where I wouldn't have to worry about my next paycheck. In other words, I was defined by being risk-averse. I finally settled on a mechanical engineering major and graduated with my bachelor's degree, ready to hit the job field. I focused on all the things that would set me up for a long career in this field. Back then, getting a meaningful job right out of college was the norm, and I went to work as a mechanical engineer as soon as I graduated. Unfortunately, in just a short time, I found that I was bored to death. I dreaded going to work every day to work on designing the same piece of machinery I had worked on the day before, and the only thing I had to look forward to was designing something similar when I finished that one. Luckily for me, I kept my options open. I wasn't absolutely wed to the idea that I had to be a mechanical engineer to be happy. In less than a year, I took another job in the civil engineering field, working for a utility, and I've learned so much more along the way. My friends in college couldn't believe I would abandon my field to walk away from all the things that define a mechanical engineer versus a civil engineer. But you see, if I had not kept my options open, I wouldn't be where I am today. I can tell you that. I think the CEO of PepsiCo said it best. If you always have one eye on some future goal, you stop paying attention to the job at hand, miss opportunities that might arise, and stay fixedly on one path, even when a better, newer course might have opened up. In other words, don't lose sight of opportunities that might be right at your doorstep by keeping only a singular focus. Look out and beyond that pinpointed view so you don't miss something to the left or right of that line of sight. There may just be a better opportunity you'll miss if you view your career as a single pathway. You see, a career isn't all about starting out with one thing and then sticking to that until you've reached the top. I like how Patty Sellers and many other successful women describe it. A career is not about climbing the corporate ladder, but more climbing around the corporate jungle gym. Which leads me to my next perspective, and that is you have to be flexible and nimble. Looking at your career path as one that winds and twists around instead of being linear. You see, the traditional thinking is that we must climb the corporate ladder. Every job change must be a promotion. But by doing so, you may miss opportunities along the way. If you think of your career as navigating the corporate jungle gym instead, you will still succeed, but not every move will necessarily be upward. It may make more sense to move sideways or even down to gain some experience, try new things, or take advantage of an opportunity for personal reasons, and then move back to a higher place in the jungle gym. Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, describes the corporate jungle gym in her highly successful book, Lean in this way. She says, the jungle gym model benefits everyone, but especially women who might be starting their careers, switching careers, getting blocked by external barriers, or re-entering the workforce after taking time off. The ability to forge a unique path with occasional dips, detours, and even dead ends presents a better chance for fulfillment. Plus, a jungle gym provides great views for many people, not just those at the top. On a ladder, most climbers are stuck staring at the butt of the person above. And really, who wants to do that for a lifetime? Let me give you an example in my career. In 2001, I took a promotion from my water quality vice president position to a regional vice president level. At that time, I was offered the position at our company's largest and most prestigious region. I was moving up the corporate ladder. But after a year in that position, another position became available in another region of the company. The other region was smaller, with fewer employees and a lower budget, a downgrade by anyone's measure. At the time, though, I was struggling to raise my 3-year-old son away from any extended family, something I'd always grown up with and was very important to me. I grew up surrounded by a large family, and I wanted my son to have the same experience. The open position was located near my family, so I had a dilemma. Do I make the change, meaning move down the corporate ladder to do something I felt important for my family, or do I stay put and hope that I can just make the best of things? Well, at the time, I didn't have any concept of a corporate jungle gym and felt like I was quite possibly stalling my career. But my family was more important to me, so I made the move. I made the move and learned so much more than I thought possible when I made the decision. You see, moving slightly sideways and slightly down the corporate jungle gym opened up new possibilities I didn't even know existed. For example, this smaller region was far removed from our corporate headquarters and ran rather autonomously. I found myself in a situation where I didn't have the crutch of the corporate office nearby, so I had to lead and make decisions on my own. Further, I hadn't worked closely with the employees located there previously, since they were always remote to the hub of the business. As such, I didn't have the personal relationships at the office that I was used to in my previous positions, having always been promoted within the same office or certainly nearby. I suddenly had to learn how to build relationships with employees who didn't know me well, and I didn't know them well, yet I was their boss. I tend to be an introvert, direct, but introverted nonetheless. I had to learn to put that aside and develop new skills to build relationships to be successful. You see, without that move, I would not have had the opportunity to really lead a group on my own. Even worse, I wouldn't have built new relationships and alliances that serve me well to this day. With my current position back at corporate, I have responsibility for that remote region and rely on those relationships I built through my years on the lower rung of the corporate jungle gym. Further, I would never have had a full understanding of the challenges of the remote region if I had never worked there, and I would never have been properly attentive to their needs and challenges. In other words, I wouldn't be as effective in my job today had I not taken that downward transfer. You see, I didn't originally see the opportunity, didn't view the change as an opportunity to grow, but that is exactly what it was. By being willing to move sideways and down the corporate jungle gym, I was much better positioned to move up later on. So my lesson here is, don't be afraid to take a lateral move, or even a move downward if that move gets you some experience you need or a position you want. The added benefit was, it was the best move I could have made for my family. My son blossomed in those years, building lifelong relationships with his grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, and I continue to learn and grow in ways I see now better prepared me for the position I am in today. While I was in the regional vice president position, I experienced a very difficult challenge that leads me to my third point, and that is to have a mentor, preferably someone outside your current organization. While leading the remotely located region, I came across some disturbing information that I knew needed the attention of upper management. However, I wasn't equipped with how to deal with the problem. And given the sensitivities of the situation, I could not ask anyone inside the organization for guidance or advice. That's when I turned to my mentor. I had developed a great relationship with a successful man outside my organization who understood my business and my company well. He was perfectly suited to give me advice from an outsider's perspective, and that is where I turned to for advice. His guidance was critical in my successfully addressing the difficult situation. I always recommend being mentored by someone outside your organization. It might be okay to have a mentor who's inside your company. However, you need that outside view to guide you through the twists and turns you'll encounter inside your company. An inside mentor will be biased. And let me make a distinction between a mentor and a champion. It is so helpful to have a champion for you inside your organization, someone at a higher level who is looking out for you, being your cheerleader when you're not around, and working the scene to promote your skills and value to the organization. That is not a mentor. A mentor is someone who can tell you straight up what you need to know, how you need to change your behavior, how you need to respond, how you need to approach things, and to be a sounding block for your ideas. A mentor must be honest with you. This person needs to be someone you trust, yet someone you know will give you the best and right feedback for you to act on. A mentor is also not your therapist. It is someone to push you in the right direction, giving you ideas and candid feedback so you can improve. I have always had at least one mentor outside my organization, and at times more than one. And I allow these mentors to see what I do, critique how I write, how I interact, and the decisions I make. And I value their feedback and learn from them. And a little tidbit, all of my mentors have been men. I work with men. My bosses have always been men. Most of my workforce is men. Therefore, to be successful, I need the feedback from a man's perspective. Now, that may not sound right to you, but the reality is, to make it to the C-suite in any business, particularly in the utility business, you have to know how to best work with men. So find a man who's willing to be your mentor and who will help you accomplish your goals. You know, some people have asked me what it's like to always be working with men. Do I have to act differently or look differently? So I'll take a side step here and just say that in my experience as a woman working in a male-dominated environment, you certainly do have to be aware of your situation. Yes, men like to talk about sports a lot. So I don't roll my eyes and walk away when the subject of sports comes up. I stay and listen and participate where I can. Yes, that means I need to know what teams made it to the Final Four or who was playing in the Super Bowl, but a quick glance at the sport headlines will give you all that you need to know. You don't have to say a lot. Just don't make a snide comment about sports and walk away. You never want to walk away when the men are talking. And you don't have to look like a man or dress like a man anymore to be successful. The days of monochrome, boxy men's suits that IBM is famous for are long gone. But you do need to dress respectfully and professionally. You now can do that with a feminine touch. So getting back to the mentor, let me also say that having a mentor comes with responsibility. If you ask someone to be your mentor, you need to respect their time and respect their opinion. When scheduling a meeting, always be prepared with your questions, your ideas, your issues. I've also been a mentor, and I ask that whomever I'm working with come to our meetings prepared, meaning have a summary of whatever dilemma they want to discuss, show me a sample of a report they want to approve, ask me about a scenario they want to role play, etc. And now I always make sure I'm prepared before I call in my mentor. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised by the people who are willing to be your mentor. All you need to do is seek out someone you trust, preferably someone who understands your business, and someone you can rely on for appropriate and direct feedback. Just ask, and I'm sure you can find that perfect fit. And that fit will change over time. Some mentoring relationships may be short-term and others more long-term. It doesn't matter, just get one. So speaking of mentors, one of my mentors along the way told me to always keep learning, never stop reading, exploring, asking. To that end, I think it's fitting that I include my perspective about learning, and that is to never stop learning. Like most of you, I'm sure, finding time to read is almost impossible. Work fills up our days, not to mention family obligations, exercise, and the essentials like eating and helping the kids with homework. So finding the time to read for learning's sake is hard to do, but it is essential. I've already quoted one very popular author focusing on helping women succeed, Sheryl Sandberg, in her best-selling book, Lean In. In this book, Ms. Sandberg shares her story and her life lessons, and there are many others. There is so much to learn from others. I urge you to make a commitment to read at least a couple of these types of books per year. They can be the classic business bestsellers like Good to Great by Jim Collins or The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. These are classic business books and are on the must-read list for those interested in leading organizations and making a difference. There's also plenty to learn from other successful people by reading their biographies. Inspirational stories from successful women, such as Everybody's Got Something by Robin Roberts and By Invitation Only by Alex Maybach and Alexandra Wilkins come to mind. Robin Roberts, one of the most successful female sports journalists and media success stories, recounts her struggle with cancer and related diseases in a really touching way. And in By Invitation Only, these ladies share their journey of making it to the top in an extremely competitive world of fashion and commerce. Reading these stories can be inspirational and help keep us motivated. And biographies such as these help us learn so many things we can apply to that corporate jungle gym we're currently playing around in. Whether it's on an airplane, at your lunch break, or in the bubble bath, take time to continue learning about your industry, business in general, leadership skills, and world issues. Not only are these books helpful as guidelines and filled with interesting stories, they will help you stay current and speak the ever-changing language in the C-suite. Another quick point about learning, and it ties perhaps to another perspective I've gained over the years, and that is to make the most of every situation. I mentioned earlier I returned to school after 10 years in the workforce to get my MBA. I wanted to continue my learning in a more formal way. But there is more to that story. After being with my utility only 2 years, the company went through a complete reorganization. One goal of the organization change was to flatten the reporting structure, to get rid of the middle management positions. That meant getting rid of my position. With the organizational change, I was moved down that corporate jungle gym, and not by choice. I found myself with less responsibility, which meant I had a little more time on my hands. Rather than wallow in the embarrassment of the downgrade, I decided to make the most of the opportunity that was handed to me. I could easily do my job and do it well in an 8-hour day. So I decided to use that extra time in the evenings and on weekends to go back to school for my MBA. I worked out a schedule with my boss whereby I could work 9-hour days and have every other Friday off so that I could go to school classes all day Friday and all day Saturday. It took me a couple of years, but I graduated from UC Irvine's Graduate School of Management. I was so busy learning new things, I didn't have time or energy to become bitter about the reorganization. Rather, I was thankful I had the opportunity to have time to go back to school. The schedule would have been nearly impossible if I'd had the manager level position I had prior to the reorganization. So I made the most out of what could have otherwise been a career stalling situation. I try to tell employees now, if they don't like their situation, change it. Look for opportunities around them. What is it they could do to make their situation better? And no matter the current circumstances, make the best outcomes possible. Be in control of the situation. Don't let the situation control you. If you find your career stalling or sidelined by some decision or reason out of your control, take control back. You and only you are in charge of your career. Now, I made mention of a mentor not being a champion, and I want to go back to that. While it's always nice to have a champion in your organization, the point I want to make here is that we need to be the champion of someone else, hopefully a woman. Given the stats I shared earlier, women need champions in their organizations, someone to be their cheerleader, someone to give them credit and highlight their accomplishments. I remember early in my career, I never wanted to have a woman boss. The few women I saw in the supervisory ranks were, frankly, mean, especially towards other women. This may have been a unique phenomenon, but it gave me a different perspective on women in the higher ranks. I never wanted to be that woman boss that no other woman wanted to work for. It almost seemed as though these women wanted to hold women to a higher standard, perhaps because they understood that oftentimes it may seem women must do more than their male counterparts, or perhaps because they felt they had to do so, just do so much more to achieve their position. I don't know the reason. I just know I did not want to be defined as that mean woman boss. And that hasn't come without effort, and I certainly haven't always been successful at it. As I said earlier, I'm an introvert, but also very direct. My direct nature and singular focus to excel can easily be branded as mean. So I've had to work at it, work at being kind, work at understanding that my direct nature doesn't appeal to or motivate everyone. I've been so fortunate to have more than one champion in my 25-plus-year career. One woman I worked with was such an incredible champion for me in my own organization. I knew she was always supporting me every opportunity she had. And not only did she champion me with the CEO, she championed me with colleagues and direct reports all the time. And not every champion has to be a woman to support you. I had a fabulous male champion who I know was instrumental in my promotion to the executive ranks. He was my boss at the time of my promotion, and I know that he had to support my moving up in the organization or it would have never happened. Along these lines, I also want to be sure that I recognize and promote women in my own organization. I'm still working at that, trying to support the women who are coming up in the organization, give them resources and encouragement, and be their cheerleader at executive meetings or board meetings when they aren't around to speak for themselves. I had a champion speak for me when I first started out, and I know that made a difference. I want to make a difference for women in my organization. Now, I want to back up a little bit in my career to talk about another perspective I learned that I think has helped me along the way. I call this perspective getting dirty. I say back up because this is one I learned when I first started out, and I didn't realize its value until much later. I mentioned earlier that I started my career working at a sewer plant. I was actually putting myself through school at the time, and so I worked part-time while taking classes at UC Davis. At the sewer plant, I worked alongside the operators, basically working in the field, if you were. So even though I was in engineering school, I worked in frontline operations. And frontline operations at a sewer plant is about as frontline as it gets. It doesn't get much dirtier than working with sewage sludge. Now, I was the only female on the plant, period. So here I was, a young female college student, working alongside with some pretty crusty guys, day in and day out. And the perspective I gained through this experience has served me well in every position since. And the lesson I learned here was how to work with the frontline staff in addition to the bosses. I learned how to speak their language and understand what their work was like. You see, I learned not to take myself too seriously, for one thing. Yes, I was getting a degree, and the majority of the guys I worked with at most had high school education. Yet they were smart, dedicated, and good at what they did. Could they do calculus? No, but they could fix a sludge pump with one hand tied behind their back in a rainstorm. And that skill was valuable. It was very valuable to the utility and the customers we served. So I learned firsthand to respect these workers. I learned how to communicate with them. I learned what management decisions ticked them off and which ones didn't. I learned how hard it was to fix a sump pump in the pouring rain, and that this skill was every bit as important as understanding a spreadsheet on a financial statement when it comes to successfully running the utility or any business. Because of this experience, I think I'm better able to listen to our frontline staff today, better able to communicate with them, better able to understand and empathize with their situations, and furthermore, I've been told by them that I have their respect because I've done their kind of work. So what do you do if you're already on your way, coming into an organization or position at a higher level, never having experienced what it is like to be on the front lines? I recommend shadow days. Shadow days are what I call days where you put down your computer, get out of your office, and work with your frontline staff all day. If you're a call center boss, get out of your office and get back on the floor one day. Refresh yourself to remember what it's like to be on the phone all day long. If you're a customer service representative, put down your phone and follow one of the field employees all day long. See and observe what it's like to physically change out a meter. You may have a sense for what the meter looks like and does, particularly if you're looking at customer databases all day long, but go into the field to get a better sense. Even today, I take at least one day per year, preferably two, where I shadow an operator all day. I meet with them at their start time and their location with my jeans and tennis shoes on and follow them all day, asking questions, understanding the best I can what it's like to be in their shoes. This gives me a much better perspective of the impact my decisions make at the corporate level on their ability to do their jobs day in and day out. And that, I think, leads to better decisions. This helps you to lead with your head and your heart. So the final perspective I want to talk about is thinking about the present. While it's imperative to have a goal for the future and have a plan to meet that goal, it is also important to think about the impact we're having right now. My final thought is summed up in a phrase: do what you're doing now at your very best. You know, every time I was offered a promotion, it came as a surprise to me. So much so that I had to take a moment to think about the offer to make sure it was something I wanted right then. I was so very involved in the present that I wasn't focused on getting the promotion. When I was first promoted to a vice president level, I was actually considering leaving the company. My husband had taken a job in another city, making my commute pretty intolerable. Our plan was for me to start looking for another job closer to his work. But that didn't detract me from focusing on doing my job to the best of my ability. During this time, I worked hard and met some very difficult stretch goals. It was my hard work that got me noticed. It wasn't my asking for a promotion. It wasn't my bragging about my hard work. It wasn't my playing the equal pay for women or any related political game within the company. It was because I worked very hard every day at my current job. I met or exceeded deadlines. I tried to predict the needs of my boss and meet them. And yes, I worked long hours and hard days, and frankly, I still do. I tried to be the best at my position. That doesn't mean I didn't make mistakes. I made plenty, and I'll make plenty more. But I owned up to my mistakes and worked out solutions. The point being, I focused on doing my current job very well, not on how to get to the next level. I believe it was that focus that led to my promotion to the executive level in the first place. Another quick story. I remember when I was first promoted to a vice president position, I was so nervous about going to my first officer meeting. The officer group was intimidating, and the officer meetings had this sort of secret aura about them. Everyone knew where and when the officers were meeting, and there was always a hush about the office when the meetings were in session. Well, I picked out my best suit, got all spiffed up and ready for my first meeting. I remember getting to the meeting, going through the agenda, sitting through and participating in the discussion, all the while thinking, this is it? You've got to be kidding me. There's nothing magical or extra cerebral happening here. I could have done this a long time ago. Grief. I tell you this story because I think we women often tend to exaggerate what it takes to move ahead. We elevate the difficulty factor and talk ourselves out of ever being able to achieve lofty goals. So don't do that. It's never as difficult as you make it out to be for yourself. Give yourself a chance. But I will add that just doing your job isn't enough to move you to the next level. You must excel at your job. Keep working hard. So to sum up, my career has been very rewarding, challenging, ever-changing, but certainly rewarding. Don't get me wrong, not every day has to be fun. There are always ups and downs in everyone's career. I think back about all the things I learned along the way, and if I had all these perspectives when I started out so many years ago, how much more valuable an employee I would have been. But that's what it's all about, right? Learning, changing, and striving to be our best every day. So try these things. Be open-minded to new possibilities and not stuck on one mindset. Be nimble on that corporate jungle gym. Don't think for a moment that a move sideways or downwards is always a bad thing. Really think about finding a good mentor. A mentor can truly help you out of the hard spots. Refine your executive presence and be that voice of reason for you. And one point I cannot emphasize enough, never stop learning. Read, go to training classes and seminars, and keep an open mind. Be a champion for someone, and if you don't have a champion in your organization, find one. Try standing in someone else's shoes, be kind, work hard at what you do, and enjoy the jungle. Remember, glass ceilings are just that, glass, which is very breakable. I wish you all the best and would love to hear from you. Here's my email address, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions or hear any comments you have.
Thank you, Denise. That was very wonderful. We enjoyed you sharing your candid story with us and providing your insights on what's necessary to move forward in your career there in the utility industry, and also just the provoking, thoughtful insight toward ourselves. So I'd like to move toward some questions. And it says, let's see, how do you balance your professional and personal life or work-life balance?
Well, I'll tell you, it is a challenge. And balance means sacrifice. And I could only do what I do because I have an extremely supportive spouse and family. I have a stay-at-home husband, and so that makes the balance. It's not easy, and I would say to people, you can't be everything to everyone. And so you're going to have to make sacrifices. If you want to excel in one area, you need support in other areas. And that's the only way I can get it done.
Very good. Well, you mentioned earlier some things that you wish you had known earlier. Is there one piece of advice you wish someone had shared with you when you were first beginning your career?
You know, I think one piece of advice that would have been helpful is for somebody to help me understand to not set out unrealistic expectations about having that perfect career. Careers always have ups and downs, and it would have been helpful to know and to think about that there's going to be ups and downs in my career. It's not going to be perfect. I'm not always going to be happy every day going to my job. It's not always a bed of roses. And with that in mind, then you can relax and be a little less stressed about those small things, and take the ride, enjoy the jungle gym, if you will, a little bit more, rather than just being so stressed out that not every day is perfect.
Oh, yeah, I understand. So attitude is a very big component there. Do you communicate differently with men versus women?
You know, I really don't. I've been asked that before, and I think what I try to do when I communicate with people is I communicate with everybody differently, depending on their own personalities. And this is something I've really had to strive to do. I said earlier that I'm very direct, and it's taken me too long to realize that not everybody can respond or responds well to direct approach. And so I've had to really learn how to communicate with people based on where they are, what their personalities are like, what's bothering them, and what they're thinking about, and try to focus my communications individually, whether it be with a man or a woman, you know, and not segment people into those categories, but look at each person as an individual.
I understand. And so being self-aware and how you present is a very key factor there as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we have an attendee who wants to know, what's your biggest career challenge and how did you overcome it?
You know, I think one of my biggest career challenges was, and continues to be, working with employees that you really like, you really care for, you really want them to exceed and to excel, but for whatever reason, they're just not able to do so. And you know, when you give them every resource after resource after resource, but when it doesn't work out, you're stuck making the decision in the best interest of the company to do something with that employee, either a demotion or help move them out of the business. Those have been, I think, my biggest career challenges is, you know, dealing with employees that aren't quite meeting the goals that need to be met for the company when you know you like them, you want them to succeed, but you know that you just have to make a different choice. And those to me personally are huge challenges and things that I find very difficult to work through.
That makes good sense. Sometimes making those harder decisions, you know, are very hard.
It's very
I have another
hard.
question here. Yeah. I have another question for you. Veronica's asking, as a mother, did you take maternity leave or did you return to work as soon as possible to avoid losing status?
It's a great question. Thank you for asking. I took the amount of maternity leave, the minimum amount that I was allowed in law. I actually had an 8-week due to pregnancy complications. And the day after my 8-week, I went back to work. And I will tell you, I've regretted that. I wish now that I would have taken more time at home and come back slowly. And I just say that, and everybody has to work out their own situations and what's best for them. And I had the perfect situation. My husband, at that time, we decided he was going to stay at home. So I was leaving my baby with my husband. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, but I was still leaving my baby. And that is a very difficult thing to do. And I do wish I would have come back a little more slowly, maybe, you know, half days at first, at least for a couple of weeks, rather than diving right back into it. That was a very, very hard thing for me to do.
I imagine hard for a number of women, too.
It is.
Good question. Yeah.
It is, and I think it's one of the areas where companies are beginning to recognize that you will have better employees if you give employees time off for maternity leave. Give them that amount of time. They'll come back better, happier, more dedicated to you. So I think today's companies will do better and will succeed better if they give their female employees more time off. Don't make the female employees feel pressured to come back to work right away. I think that it's the company's responsibility to make sure that we are supporting women in that role.
Well, they are at that point developing their talent and putting that effort where they see, you know, the greatest, or not even greatest talent, but in their employees, which is very, very good for employers to do.
Exactly.
I have another question for you. One of your attendees wants to know, what are your goals moving forward? You seem like someone who's very goal-oriented to me, too. So.
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, one of the goals that I certainly have, you know, before I retire here is I really want to make sure that the company is well-positioned. You know, when I retire, I want to make sure that the folks that are in the management levels and levels below me are supported and in a position to step up and take on leadership roles here before I go. And I want to be sure that, you know, my goal is to set folks up here at my company to take on leadership roles so that I know that they will be successful and the company will continue to be successful when I get to go enjoy retirement.
Well, very good. So in a sense, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I said, which I'm looking forward to, isn't everybody?
Exactly. A legacy of yours. That is awesome. So, do we have any more questions from our attendees? Let's see. Well, you mentioned earlier a couple of different business books and one from the Lean In. Are there any other books that you find more valuable things that you've read?
Boy, the most valuable thing. I have to tell you, one of the things that I go back to often, and it is from the book Good to Great that I also mentioned, and it deals with, again, people. And the thought from that book, one of the key points in that book was that successful companies and successful businesses are really all about successful people. And so you should focus on getting the right people. And so that has made me realize that I need to spend a lot of time focusing on giving resources to staff, you know, providing opportunities for training, getting the right people. He calls it getting the right people on the bus, if you will. So I like to think of it as getting the right people in the organization, and when you have the right people, feed them and nurture them and help them grow, and help in particular women, because you saw the statistics at the beginning of the conversation. So we need to especially be aware of and help women to grow in their positions and in their leadership roles. And that was, that quote always sticks in my mind when I think about how I can help influence, my company and help the people here.
Right, and I've always shared that same belief that successful women need to, it's a responsibility to help other women become successful as well.
Yep.
I have a question here. There's a question here from Tanika that wants to know, you're going back to school schedule. Was it your first suggestion or a compromise, because it appears that she's in the same, or looking to take the same route?
Oh, okay. You mean, well, so my schedule when I went back to school, I worked, I had gone to my boss and asked for that time, and he was very accommodating, which I was very grateful for. So I was able to go to school every other Friday and then every other Saturday. Now that, of course, is a huge sacrifice. That means every weekend you're basically going to school. But it worked out great for me, and I would say work out whatever schedule you can. If it's going to take you a little bit longer, go ahead and take that time, but finish your degree. It is, I learned so much when I was getting my MBA. It was so different from my original degree, which of course is engineering. But I also learned from the people there. It gave me a different perspective on my career. So, of course it'd be fabulous to go back to school and not have to work. But that's just, that was the reality, right? So you just have to buckle up and, get your head down and get the work done, but it's worth it in the end.
Very good. So another question has come in that wants to know, as a recent college graduate looking to pursue a career in the water industry, do you have any advice on how to begin their career on the right foot?
Sure. So I would suggest a couple of things. Network with people that are in the business. And if you don't know anybody in the business, well, you now know me. So, go ahead and reach out to people in the utility business. Give them your background, give them your resume, and, you don't necessarily ask them to hire you, but you ask it in a way of, hey, here's what I'm interested in. If you hear of something, could you keep me in mind and maybe be a champion for me, in the utility space? So I would say, networking is going to be a key thing to do. And then the other thing you can do is, start thinking about where you live or where you're looking for a job. Utility companies often have public meetings and they're often talking to city councils and things like that. And so that's a great opportunity for you to go meet people in the utility, because utilities are pretty public agencies, right? They're out in the public domain all the time. So take advantage of those opportunities to meet someone. If somebody is from the utility and are giving a presentation at a public forum, hang around and afterwards say, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so, I live in the community, I like what you had to say. By the way, I'm looking for a position, starting my career, blah, 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 and just introduce yourself. You just gotta, you have to take the initiative.
I think I recall you mentioned earlier you were an intern. Is it prevalent in the utility industry for there to be internships? I'm just curious about, I'm learning about the industry myself.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I was an intern, and our company hires interns quite frequently. So it is, I think, fairly common in the utility space to hire interns, either college students, who are looking for jobs in the summer, or in some cases we have year-round interns, college students that have enough time in their schedule to put in, several hours a week. And it's a perfect opportunity for people to learn about the industry and see if they really like working in the utility space. And my company, we love it. We get great employees, and it's just fun to see and to work with these college interns that are, kind of beginning their careers. but it's a win-win for both.
Oh, very good. So I have another question. Michelle would like to know, do you feel volunteering in the community, such as Friends of the Everglades, which are advocates for water quality, is beneficial in networking and job opportunities?
Great question. I would say absolutely. I think the more volunteering you can do in your area, in your field, is helpful, because you're obviously going to meet other people that are interested in, in your field. But I also think it's helpful just volunteering in the community in general, because it does set you up with opportunities to network with community leaders and other influencers in the community. So definitely, it's definitely great for, in this case, the Florida, the Everglades, the environment, to do that work. But when it's tied to your interest, then all the better.
And definitely it's an investment in yourself by exposing yourself to your surroundings and everything. So that's one key piece too. Well, I want to be respectful as we're near the top of the hour, and I want our attendees to know that we respect their time, and we'll conclude promptly. If your question was not answered, Amber Weems with the CS Week office will forward questions to Denise, and we'll follow up post-webinar. Just as a reminder, CS Week and Conference 39 is April 27th to May 1st, and registration for the Women Utilities Networking Reception is complimentary to all our female attendees. And Denise, I wanted to say thank you, but also to leave you with one last question. It appears your reading list is on high demand. So I was wondering if you would share your reading list, or maybe just pull together some top books that you would recommend, and we can share those with the attendees. That would be great. So do you have any closing remarks? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said I would love to. I'll definitely put together my top 10 reading list, if you will. And, just in closing, again, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity. It was certainly my pleasure and privilege to speak with you all, and hopefully I'll see all of you at the conference, at the Women's Networking Reception in particular. I'll be there, so I look forward to seeing you. And again, any other questions, feel free to reach out directly.
Very good. Well, thank you, Denise. We appreciate you coming and sharing your story with us, and we look forward to seeing you there at the conference. So with that, we will conclude the webinar. Thank you.